Welcome back to JaredBodine.com, the tech you need to know. Today we are looking at some of my favorite legacy home theater components. First, we have the classic VHS. This magnetic tape format won the format war against its competitor, Betamax. Now, Beta, which is what it was known as for short, was obviously smaller, but debatably better quality. Far short, of course, of what we know from DVDs or even the later high-definition Blu-rays. But the negligible difference in quality over VHS was not enough to justify the extra expense. Beta did last a little longer than you might have guessed. It was around in TV stations and some other things for a little while, but it didn't really make it in the home consumer market. Yes, I still have Beta. This particular one is The Golden Child and Back to School. Good movies, you should check them out. This format here was pretty good though. I mean, it worked pretty well for most people. I'm sure you have a copy of Lion King or something lying around in your house with this. Depending on the quality you would choose, this could hold 2, 4, or 6 hours of video. It was plenty good enough to last, and it made the person, the home user, eligible to record their favorite shows and watch them anytime they wanted. It was brilliant. And frankly, until DVRs came along, which is also now considered legacy, there was no other way to really time shift your favorite shows. I'm sure people, though, were pretty happy to get rid of VHS and never have to be told to be kind and rewind again. I find it hard to believe that this next one we have to call legacy, CD, is legacy, but here we are. I still have a 400-disc CD changer that I loved, but with the proliferation of MP3 files, why would you keep one of these giants around? That being said, I actually still have this giant 400 DVD changer that works the same way as the CD changer, but also played DVDs. In fact, it even used to play both sides of a DVD. I know you're probably thinking, wait, did DVDs actually have two sides? Well, yeah, some of them did, and it was a real bummer when I was watching Stargate, the original movie, and when side one ended, you had to get up off the couch, over the DVD, and flip it over and put it back in. This one would automatically detect you reached the end of side one, and it would move the laser to the other side of the disc and play side two. I mean, come on, how cool is that? Of course, DVDs are also now considered legacy, but I don't feel like I really have to go into too much detail about how DVDs are or were. This video I'm making is not exactly in the year like 2555, so I think you all kind of know DVDs pretty well at this point. Speaking of two-sided video discs, I always have a soft spot in my heart for this beauty. No, I don't mean The Life of Brian, although I do love it. I am referring to the Laserdisc. The Laserdisc was the precursor to DVDs, and basically it was like an oversized video CD with low resolution at 425. It didn't quite match up to the next level, which was 480p DVDs, but it was still pretty close and far better than VHS. Still, the large size and cost did mean that it didn't last quite as long. But look at this gorgeous beauty, huh? Don't you love that? Oh, but look at the size of it compared to a CD. You can see why, or DVD in this case, you can see why clearly this one wasn't meant to last forever. But it sure was fun. I also used to have a I still have it. I still have an old Laserdisc player right now, and it will also play two sides of the disc without having to get up and turn it over, which I found really handy when watching something like Braveheart, where there's like a big emotional scene, then you have to get up and change the side again. In that one, there would actually be a mechanism that would read the disc on the bottom, starting from the inside, and then read towards the back, and then the mechanism would actually flip the laser up over and go to the top, and then read back. Either way, it was pretty cool. I also still have a couple of these left in my collection. This one here is Monty Python's Life of Brian. I also still have Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and one of my favorites, Army of Darkness. Has nothing to do with this video, I just thought you should know about those movies. Not all legacy home theater tech was large. Some, in fact, was quite small. Now, I wouldn't quite call this mini, but heck, it's about the fourth of the size of a CD, and it covered all my music needs in an amazing way. Yes, I'm talking about the amazing miniDisc. This little guy had it all the features of CD and more. It holds about the same amount of audio in stereo, double that if you recorded in mono, and the later versions even used a special compression that could get you 4 times as much of that still in stereo. Now, some of the critics of miniDisc would say the A-track compression that was used to make this possible kind of left a little to be desired, but I used it for years, and frankly, it sounded good enough for me. I used to work at a radio station, and they would play this as what you would hear. So if you listened to Rush Limbaugh on KFYI in the Arizona, Phoenix metropolitan area for like the second half of the 90s, you were listening to a miniDisc. And actually, I was the guy putting the miniDisc on the radio for you. Hope you enjoyed that. I love this format for a lot of reasons. Not just because it was a lot easier to carry around than a CD, but also look how durable this thing is. Inside of this protective case, there was no way you were going to scratch up this disc. It does open with a little trick that I picked up because I always wanted to see the inside of these things. And there you go. There's the disc inside of this little protective thing. It actually kind of has a very similar mechanism to what you would see in a floppy drive in computers. But normally it would stay pretty secure in this. Not only can this hold audio quality similar enough to a CD to make me happy, but they're also recordable. Now, recordable CDs aren't exactly a new thing, but when these came out, recordable CDs were very difficult to get your hands on, and the equipment very expensive and also hard. Unless you bought a store-bought pressed version of a miniDisc. Yes, I do have the soundtrack to Titanic on miniDisc. Don't ask. But unless you bought one of these bad boys, where the disc is actually pressed and not recordable, then these all were not just recordable, but also re-recordable. And virtually, inevitably, like forever time. Like, there is an actual theoretical limit, they say, before you are no longer able to record on mini-discs. But like I mentioned, I used to work at a radio station and use these things all day, every day. We never had one of these go bad. And I've recorded and re-recorded on these so many times for my own personal use. This particular one is the Best of Nirvana. Now, there's a band that didn't have new music coming out, so I didn't have a chance to re-edit this a lot. But with my bands like Foo Fighters that just keep making new songs over and over and over, I could update my best of anytime I wanted. It wasn't even an all or nothing thing. Like recordable CDs, you usually have to burn that disc, and then if you want to rewrite on those rare rewritable CDs, you'd have to wipe the whole disc and re-record the whole thing. But with mini-discs, they almost worked like a hard drive in a way. You could eliminate just the songs that you wanted to delete. And you could even rearrange the order of tracks. Maybe you don't like track 5 being there. You like that song so much you want it to be track 1. All you have to do is in your in your mini-disc player, you could go in and edit the table of contents to rearrange the songs in any order you like. And you always knew which song was which because there was text embedded into the same audio tracks. So you always knew the name of the song, and you could edit the name of the song. You could even trim the songs, take out the intro, or cut off the ending if you wanted to, or split a song into 2 parts. It was the coolest feature ever. I don't know what I would have done without this in the heyday of the 90s when I used to use this all the time. It was really a lifeblood. But of course, like what happened to a lot of things, the internet kind of killed this. Because you could go online to like Napster or one of those guys, and you could download all the songs you wanted on MP3 and then put them on a mobile device like an iPod. Well, once that came along, that was pretty much the beginning of the end for the venerable but amazing mini-disc. Far inferior, but probably much more common in the average American household, was the cassette. Now, I don't love cassettes, to be honest. I only used cassettes because I wanted a way to record music and make my own mixes and playlists. I mean, who hasn't had a girlfriend that they made a mix playlist for? Now, nowadays, you actually make like a playlist on Spotify, but back in the day, if you had a girl you liked, you made her a playlist on a cassette. Well, once I got my mini disc, I tossed out the cassette. And Basically, I've never looked back. But people still have a little fondness for the cassette. In fact, my favorite band, They Might Be Giants, had a new album released in 2021, and it was released on cassette, and it sold out. So hey, what do I know, right? Speaking of They Might Be Giants, I recently picked up this. Their same album that I mentioned was released on cassette, in my hands, in vinyl. That's right, vinyl. Now, I don't know if you really need to call this last one legacy, because it's really not the end of vinyl. And who doesn't love records? Now, sure, they don't have the same crisp reproduction of digital music, but in a way, that's the charm. The needle on a record player vibrates as it hits the grooves in a record, and it actually just amplifies what is physically on the record. So really, you get a very true-to-life reproduction of the sound. It's actually being made in front of you. It's just amplified. You know, with a needle and something to amplify the sound, you could actually listen to a record without any electricity. But I don't recommend doing that because you'll kind of damage the grooves if you're not really careful. Use a proper needle and change it once in a while. But these have definitely made a comeback in the recent years, and I enjoy busting out my old record collection once in a while. In fact, I still maintain my legacy collection of all of my home theater devices and all my equipment, and I still find myself using them once in a while just for the pure joy of it. There's something almost magical about using these portals to the past. They just transport you to a different time and different place. Hey, do you have a favorite piece of legacy home theater hardware that maybe I left out that you still have in your collection, or something that I should have talked about? Feel free to go ahead and put it in the comments below. I'd like to hear what maybe I could do another video on in the future for you. Thanks again for tuning in to JaredBodine.com, the tech you need to know.